In this video, we're going to talk about letting go a little bit. Stop thinking too much in terms of theory, techniques, proper techniques, all those things. They have their place, but maybe not in your actual improvisation, because in your imperfections comes something very perfect. Grab your guitar, we're going to get started right after this. Hello, my name is David Wallerman. Welcome to this channel, which is all about helping guitar players around the world find their unique voice on the instrument. This is all about communication, storytelling. That's what the channel is about. That's what music is about. There's beauty in that, and that's what we're going to explore today. The backing track that I was playing over in the intro and that we're going to use in this video is available for free along with the scale diagrams and charts. You can download those. The link is in the top line of the description below. Just enter your valid email address and I'll be sending you those right away so that you can further your apprenticeship on the instrument. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the perfection aspect of playing, which you should aspire to, and the non-perfect, which really is perfect. Well, we'll cover that in a second. But first, let's start with the perfection. What I mean by perfection is you are actively focused on working on a musical thing, whether it's a technique, a scale, a song, whatever, and you're trying to nail that. What I mean by that, you're trying to replicate that as best as possible. Those are things that are typically locked into tempo or have a set of rules around it. And we do that when we're actively practicing. And there's a big difference between actively practicing on something and letting go and telling your story. Speaking of story, here is one that I think will help illustrate this. As some of you know, English is not my first language. For the first 27 years of my life, French was what I knew. That's how I thought, that's how I dreamt, that's how I spoke, that's how I communicated, that's how I did everything. That was my tool. And it was fully part of me. And then I moved to the States. And that's where I had to change things because people didn't really understand me, or I was automatically recognized as a foreigner. And I just didn't feel free. I always had to translate my thoughts. But at first, I used we'll call it the perfect English. What I mean by that is that's all the English that I learned in school growing up. And in school, when you learn a new language, well, most of the time, or at least that's how it was in France, I learned grammar rules. I had to learn tons of vocabulary, and my English was very perfect when I moved here. Too perfect. It is so perfect that it didn't sound natural, and I couldn't really use all the imaginary imagery that I had in my mind when I taught. It was when I spoke, it was very scholar, very grammatical. And I needed to change that. I needed to be free, to break free of that. And so what I did, I just forced myself to forget and to just let it come out. And so that meant that when I let it come out, and I promise this is a music lesson, we'll come to this in a second, but when I let it go and when I started just free form speaking English, it was better in terms of speech. The speech was proper, a little more proper, or proper. It was the R's came out smoothly. It wasn't like the French people do. The accent kind of faded out. Instead of speaking like this, like I did when I moved here, it was very, very French influenced and very broken. That went away. I started to speak like this. Now there are some other things, and a lot more French word came out in my speech. So if I was saying, oh, okay, today we are going to talk about the guitar, and on the guitar we're going to it was kind of a blend of both, but that was very, very important, and that's what this actual lesson is about. So the parallel is this. Let's say that English is a foreign language and you learned all the rules, the grammar rules, the theory, the scales, the the proper way of holding your pick and all those things, well, it's going to come out in your playing, and you're not going to be very fluent in your playing if you always think like that. Here is a demonstration of what that might look like. I've got a track here. That's a conversation I'm joining. And as a foreigner of music, if I start to use all the theory aspect, the scales, the technique and all that, well, it might sound something like this. Good notes. If you hear all the attack, it's very mechanical. And then locked into tempo, it's even more obvious. So that is how I sounded when I first moved to America. My brain was still very theory orientated, very grammatically correct, and then I let go. And when I let go, when you let go musically, the elements that you learned, the scales and all the grammar and the rules and the vocabulary, is still going to come out, but it's not going to be as organized as you might think. But in that comes something really cool, because what happens mentally when you start doing that, you almost dissociate with yourself with what you're doing. It's almost like you've got a split personality. There is the active participant of the music. That's you playing, that's you triggering the notes, that's all that. But there's also the music fan, the listener, and you're becoming two. The listener starts to take over a little bit. You're hearing things and you're telling your fingers, this is what I want you to do. Instead of your fingers doing what they know they should do, and you are hearing that after. And you might be like, all right, that works, that doesn't, but it's a switch. This takes over. So you start thinking, okay, I'm imagining, okay, I'm going to try my best to do that. It might not come out naturally, but I'm going to try. It wasn't exactly that, but it was a little more what I had in mind. And eventually, see, I'm really I'm letting my musical mind, my listener being, take over. Okay, let's continue a little bit about this imperfection. See, it becomes a little imperfect. It becomes a little grammatically incorrect in some ways, because I'm playing a note maybe, and it's not exact. I'm making it right, but you're still hearing the in-between things, or the technique might be. There was a bad note in there, but I reclaimed the music that I'm performing. And in that imperfection comes something very special for the listener and for the player. You are actively participating in something, and it almost relieves you from the stress of performing. It's kind of philosophical, but it's very, very important, I think. And eventually, if you do this enough, your music will be. The outcome of your music will be very in line with what you have inside. And what is a little bit imperfect becomes perfect. I hope you're following. This is like, just listening to me, it's like, who is this guy? What are you talking about? But there's a truth in that, just letting go a little bit. Now, this particular track is great for that, because there are some surprises in there that we might encounter. Don't think that the track is always going to be what it is first. The conversation can go in many different paths, and you always need to be ready. And in order to be ready, you need to listen. You can't engage in this case, we are in B Lydian. The name doesn't matter, but these notes will work. start discovering that as you're playing, and then you become comfortable sometimes. And when you become comfortable, your fingers take over. Okay, that's easy. Well, there are some surprises in this track. At some point you're gonna hear, oh, that doesn't work anymore, so you always need to be prepared. That's where the listener needs to be in there. It's coming up soon. I'm still in B Lydian. If I stayed in Lydian and that changed, it wouldn't work, and that's why you really need, that connection needs to be very strong. So how do you work on this? Well, I've said it before. The very first step is to do this, put it down, and just listen to that conversation before speaking, before opening your mouth, before moving your fingers on the instrument. Just listen to what's going on, and your musical mind will start to be engaged and tell you what to play by singing. Na 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 na. The cheesier the better. I said it before. It's true. Da na 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 na. I like that. I want to hear that on the guitar. So I'm grabbing the instrument, and what do? I fish. I fish around. Da da ba. Ba da 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 da. Yeah. Great. That's one word. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, well, that's great, but I can't do that when I perform. You're right. You cannot do that when you perform. But you do this when you are practicing, actively practicing. And whenever you do this kind of exercise, singing something, replicating that, there is something in your subconscious that happens. Someone is buzzing in here. I'm just going to ignore. I'm just going to go with it. When you are doing this, the connection is triggered. That connection is the connection between the source of the idea, the musical idea, and the outcome. And that is engaged. And you don't even have to think about it. But the more you do this, okay? The more you do this every day, 5-10 minutes, the more you're making those connections, and your fingers have a mind of their own almost. Na 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 na. They will know that that's the kind of movement I need to do. Just like when you try to, if I try to teach you a French word, la maison, the house, la maison, you're going to try to imitate that. You're going to move your mouth a certain way, your throat, your tongue, and all that. And next time I say a word that uses some of these sounds, it'll be a little easier. Exactly the same thing happens with the instrument. Reclaim the instrument, externalize yourself from what's going on so that you can come back and be one with the track. I hope that it was valuable for you. It really is for me. Do this exercise. Download the backing track in the chart. It's free. And there are really 2 scales here, but don't focus too much on it. Use your ear. 2 scales are B, Lydian, and then we modulate at some point in the track to B, Aeolian for a short amount of time, and that's why you need to listen. All right, the link is below. It's free. Follow the URL and enter a valid email address so I can send you those assets to continue practicing this. And if this was your first visit, I want to thank you for stopping by. If you liked what you saw, you should subscribe and hit the bell icon. You know how it works, right? You've heard that before. That way you can be notified whenever I have a new video coming out, which is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thanks so much for watching this video. Practice well. Remember, nobody can play the way you play. You just need to discover what that is. I'll see you next time, and practice well.